Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today the Super Regionals are done for the NCAA softball season. That means it is Women's College World Series time, the greatest show on dirt. We're about to dive right into it. Let's get going. Alright guys, welcome to episode number 52, and again, like I just mentioned at the top, it's Women's College World Series time. The greatest show on dirt is here, finally. Listen man, I want to be there in person every year nowadays. Like I was trying to figure out how to finagle, how to get my schedule around, like getting out to Oklahoma City here in just a bit, but it's not going to happen this year. Probably won't happen next year, but maybe the next few years after that, we'll see what we got going on because I want to be there, man. These ladies are tearing it up. They torn it up all season. These are the best 8 teams in the country, right now. These are the hottest 8 teams in the country. It doesn't matter what you've looked at in the preseason. It doesn't matter what happened in the middle of the season necessarily. The conference tournaments were what they were. This is it. These are the final 8 teams, and honestly, this is what it's about, right? All throughout the season, you position yourself to be able to have a shot at making it to the Women's College World Series in the final 8. And these 8 teams right here, they have worked all season for it, just like others have, but they've worked for it, and they got hot at the right time, or they remained hot all throughout the season. They were the best team in the regionals, right? And then they took care of business in Supers, which is what we're about to talk about. So I'm going to answer 2 questions today before the break here later on. And those 2 questions are basically, it's pretty simple, right? How did they get here to this point? And who's going to be the most pivotal piece in the Women's College World Series once they get to Oklahoma City this weekend? So let's talk about that. We're going to talk about this in order of when they clinched their World Series appearance throughout Super Regional. So let's start with number 12 ranked Texas Tech. They went down to Tallahassee, Florida, as we expected, to go out and play Florida State. Before we dive into the series itself, man, just absolute mad props but also prayers to come for Lonnie Alameda, the head coach for Florida State softball. Man, she's dealing with cancer right now, but she's also just been a great sign of strength. So shout out to the ACC, all of those teams throughout the conference. You know, they have shown their support for Lonnie Alameda and that Florida State Seminole program, but also other teams have stepped up and letting Lonnie Alameda know that she's not in this thing alone. We've got her support, and she's got our support rather, and we're all in this together. So big props to her, and as she goes throughout this journey, hopefully comes out on the other side of this thing with major success and able to tell the story of how she conquered this cancer, man, because cancer sucks, but we're all, you know, doing what we can to chip in and see what we can do to help out on that front. But as far as the series is concerned, all right, on the softball side of things, man, I will say flat out, Florida State got outplayed. They got outplayed specifically in game 2. Their bats just, you know, obviously couldn't get going, and there's a major part to that, obviously. Texas Tech said, hey, listen, we're going to roll out our best in games 1 and in game 2, which is their best is their $1 million woman, Nyjah Kennedy, right? She got in the circle and she dominated for 14 innings virtually. And there's really no way around that. Okay. And I'm going to try to be brief with some of these because I don't want to hold you guys too long, but there's no way around the fact that Nyjah Kennedy was the deciding factor in that series. She's absolutely going to be the most pivotal player moving forward for Texas Tech if they have any shot of making it to the championship series, and we'll get to that later down the road. But right now, they've got their first ever appearance in the Women's College World Series, and I do not believe that they're wanting to stop there. I don't think they're satisfied with just showing up and seeing what happens or being okay with going home with 2 losses right out of the gates. That's not where their attention is right now. They're dialed in and they're ready for their initial opponent, which we're going to talk about that on the other side of the break as well. So Nyjah Kennedy, she's going to be the most important player for them moving forward as she's been all season, and I don't expect that to change whatsoever. The next team that clinched by way of a sweep was Oklahoma, right? The number 2 ranked team in the country. Some could arguably say that they're easily the number 1 ranked team in the country. They've looked like it down the stretch. They 100% have figured things out with Sam Landry in the circle coming from University of Louisiana Lafayette. There, she's come in and played a magnificent, ginormous, whatever role you want to call it, and she's done what she's had to do in the circle. But at the same token, there are concerns about their pitching staff, I would say, right? To be able to make a deep run. I think they can do it, but there's just concerns about that. But the concerns that you have on that side of the ball, you don't have any of them on the flip side of the ball. They are absolutely obliterating pitching staffs that honestly have made noise in a big way all throughout the season. I mean, the Alabama pitching staff, they were able to take care of business, obviously in the regionals, and you knew once they were paired up here with Oklahoma that they were going to be able to, hopefully make a little bit of noise. But you really didn't think that they were going to be able to put up much of a fight, and they did, unfortunately. So Oklahoma, they took care of business so that they can make that quick drive over from Norman out to Oklahoma City there. And Cassidy Pickering, man, that's my girl. That's the girl that is going to be, in my opinion, the most impactful player in the Women's College World Series for the Oklahoma Sooners. All right, right now she's that sophomore outfielder. Okay, but she leads the team in on base percentage right now, and I don't think that's by mistake. I mean, there's plenty of other players out there, right? You got Gigi, you got the freshman Gigi Garcia, right? Of course, you got Ella Parker. You got other players on that offense rather that are making a big contribution. But I think they're going to go as Cassidy Pickering goes. She stepped up from her freshman campaign and she's put up big numbers here this sophomore year. And we'll see how this pans out for Oklahoma. But I think they're going to be in good shape. All right. The third team that clinched by way of sweep was the Oregon Ducks. Now listen, I said this a couple weeks ago. I felt like Oregon was ranked way too low for the resume that they've put up. They were the 16th ranked program in the country, which was the final regional spot, right? And they were going to be paired up with big bad Texas A&M in the super regionals. But listen, those ladies out of Liberty, man, just mad shout out to them. Big props to Liberty as they were able to take down the number 1 overall seeded, Texas A&M Aggies during the regionals, which had never been done before by anybody, right? And of course, it's a mid-major Liberty team that does it and gets it done because they have been right there with the thick of every SEC team that they've played over the last few years. So big shout out to Liberty, but they just didn't have what it took to get out to Eugene, Oregon, and handle what Lindsey Grine was throwing at them. And honestly, she will be the deciding factor for Oregon moving forward. Will Oregon make a run in this Women's College World Series? I think it's going to become a situation where Lindsey Grine has to be able to keep offenses at bay because I'm not certain that Oregon is going to have enough to be able to give her a ton of run support. 3 to 4 runs maybe in this scenario where you've got some of the top pitchers in the nation right here, ready to go, ready to stifle whatever offensive power that Oregon may have to offer. So that's Oregon there. All right, those were the sweeps. Okay, the rest of these series, I think they all went 3 games, and these were all very fun series to watch. And the first team that clinched by way of sweep, just because of when they started the series, I think they started on Thursday instead of Friday, like some of these others. But Texas, man, they dropped that first game to Clemson, and things were looking a little shaky. Game 2 was not a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. I think they won Game 3 by 1 run, and Clemson was right there. They were right there, and I was. I don't know if I found myself rooting for Clemson, but I did feel like the Clemson pitching staff, man, they put up such a major, what do I say, major effort. I just don't know that. I don't know, man. The defense behind him, I don't know that it was what it needed to be. And so Texas, man, ultimately prevails. And for the third time in 4 years, they're right here. They're right here, ready to make another run. Can they get over that hump? Right? Everybody's been talking about, right? Texas has kind of been living in the shadows of Oklahoma, obviously the last few years, but haven't we all? Right? Everybody's been living in the OU shadows. I mean, they're just repeated. And I don't know what the Vegas odds right now are, but I would imagine that they could 5 peat potentially. And from there, you never know what could happen. So I don't know what this is going to look like. But what I will say is that the most important player for Texas has got to be Reese Atwood. In my opinion, she's the best catcher in the country, and she's one of the top bats left in the tournament. I mean, she can rake. I feel like she can hit the ball 350, 400 feet if she wanted to. And but it's not just about the depth of her hits, man. She's just so powerful at the plate. She's a great strategic batter. She looks like she's always going up there with a plan, and she can execute at a high level. She's hard to strike out as well. So I think Reese Atwood's going to be pivotal for Texas as they move forward. All right, the next team to clinch was a crazy series. I thought this was one of the best series to watch out of all of them. The Tennessee Nebraska matchup, man. Of course, I've got to find a way to mention my LSU Tigers in here. Of course, Nebraska upsets LSU in the Baton Rouge regional there, and they got the opportunity to travel down from Nebraska to Knoxville, Tennessee, man. And I felt like it was Nebraska's for the taking. I really did. I felt like Jordy Ball was going to have enough in the tank to get it done, especially the way Carlin Pickens looked early on in the series. And you felt like Nebraska, man, had they been able to push across a few more runs, man, things could have been really different, really different. And there were some times in that series where they had runners on, or at least even runners in scoring position, and they just weren't pushing them home, and you felt like that would come back to bite them in the end, and it did. Tennessee was too much, too late, and that was big, right? Who was able to take over the game late, and that leads me to the impact player, not only of the super regional matchup against Nebraska, but also moving forward, man. Tennessee's opportunities will rest on the shoulders of Carlin Pickens, who just set another record. I think it's 79.4 miles per hour, and she just broke her record from 2 months ago of the fastest pitch ever in our game. So shout out to Carlin Pickens again. Major props to her. Hats off. Everything to Carlin Pickens on that front. But she's got to be ready to shoulder that load for the Tennessee Volunteers. If she is not dialed in, or if they're able to get her out first, I don't know that the rest of the staff has enough. And again, no disrespect to anybody, but I just feel like what she has been able to accomplish this season, they're going to need her to continue that pace to have a shot in this tournament. So Tennessee, man, they're right there. They got a shot here. This was an intriguing series, and this one really flipped on its head, in my opinion. I thought South Carolina had a stronghold on this after game one. Sam Gress, I'm giving everybody big props today, obviously, but big props to Sam, man. The pitcher, the ace pitcher there for South Carolina, I thought she was going to be able to really do damage late in games 2 and game 3 there to stifle the UCLA offense, and she did for a while there. But man, they kind of took over in that game as well, and then things got a little haywire in that series. Just non-softball shenanigans in terms of some of the fans and just kind of being not nice people. So you hate that part of the game, right? Where people kind of insert themselves into an environment that maybe they shouldn't be, kind of thing. So you want to keep the game clean, fans. You want to root for your team, and you want to make sure that we're not making noise in a way that is not friendly. I will say that, right? So we can dial it in the heat of battle, but when it comes to some of the outside stuff that has nothing to do with our sport, let's keep that stuff off the field, man. So that would be my one nugget on that front. But despite all of that, UCLA was able to overcome the South Carolina fan base, but mainly the South Carolina players, because the South Carolina players, man, they were ready, I thought, and that was a big one there. But I mean, I think they ultimately shut them out in game 3. Game 2 was a battle, but game 3, UCLA, they asserted their dominance. And for the 33rd time in program history, I think that's a program. Well, excuse me, that's a national record. 33 times going to the Women's College World Series. So that staff, man, they're listen, they. I'm not going to say that UCLA does not have a shot because they do. They're not UCLA of old, like from 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. But anytime the Bruins are in this thing, man, they have a shot to make some noise and really put on some big magic. I've always felt like this year, throughout the entire year, UCLA has been a by committee team, and a lot of these teams are by committee, right? But you've got Jordan Woolery there, you've got Savannah Pola, who's been strong offensively. All right, you've got Taylor Tinsley in the circle, right? You've got lots of options there to go by. But I think Megan Grant is going to be the primary X factor for the Bruins. I feel she right now, if you look at statistically, I think she's leading the team in on base percentage right now. But beyond that, her energy and the way that she carries herself, man, she has really been able to trudge the team along in spots where you felt like they were a little bit kind of dead in the water, so to speak. So UCLA, they're going to be right there. Can Megan Grant help her team over the hump, get through that first game or two, and then go from there? All right. The next team that got it done, man, was Florida. Wow. They got an opportunity to have the Georgia-Florida matchup. And, here's the thing. On paper, Georgia and Florida, Florida should have won that series, I think, in 2 games. However, you just never know, especially when you're playing an in-conference team that you've already seen before and that you have history with. And so there's the Georgia-Florida rivalry on the football side. I don't know how deep it is on the softball side of things. However, Georgia put up a big fight, man, and that lefty pitcher for Georgia, is it Rolling, I believe? She's big. I like watching her, man. She's big time, but Florida proved to be bigger time down the stretch. And here's the thing. Another one that I root for a lot, Kendra Falby. I'm not a Florida Gator fan by any means, but I root for Kendra Falby because I think what she brings to the table is slightly underrated in my opinion. I think that she takes away runs out in the outfield and center field, and then what she offers, I think she's got 90 base hits this year at this point, right? But she's leading the team in a lot of statistical categories. But ultimately, she is providing a spark for that team, for that program. And it's a relatively young team. I know she's a big time senior there, and she's going to be greatly missed in Gainesville. But here's the thing, man. Kendra Falby, they're going to go as she goes. And obviously, there's other players, Megan Rothrock, Ava Brown, right? They've got a nice little core pitching staff right there. They've got people that are going to be able to support what they're doing, and I think Florida's got a great shot, man, in this series. They've got matchup problems potentially, but I think they're going to be right there. And here's a dark horse. Here's a dark horse. Ole Miss upsets Arkansas, and this was the biggest shocker of all of the super regionals for me. I thought that Arkansas should have dismantled Ole Miss, and that is no disrespect to Ole Miss at all. I just felt like, in terms of what Arkansas has, they're the best defensive team in the country, guys. Statistically speaking, you can see it with the eye test. Arkansas is legit, right? To me, they've got the best outfield in the country, and there were times where Ole Miss in this series, they made Arkansas look way less than what they'd shown us throughout the season. And because of that reason, man, Ole Miss got it done, and they move on to the Women's College World Series in a year where you felt like it was, probably everybody but them probably felt like it was a little bit of a rebuilding year. They lost Jayla Lassiter, right, to LSU. They were able to retain some players, but of course the senior graduating class that they had, I felt like they were a big piece to what they were able to do last year. They didn't, make the noise last year, obviously, that they are now. But they retooled, and they retooled well, and they got stronger and bigger and better. And that is a testament, right? Let me go on a tangent here. That's a testament to, the portal, but also recruiting out of the high school level and junior colleges and things of that nature. But that's a testament, man, to where if you are able to put the right pieces together, like hand in glove type style thing, man, you never know what can come out of that. Because Ole Miss did not look like a team that, was highly respected coming out of the SEC whatsoever, right? Quick shout out while we're on Ole Miss. Quick shout out to their baseball team, man, getting to getting to the final there in the SEC tournament. So Ole Miss, and I think that alone earned them a regional opportunity as well, which we won't talk about today, but next week we'll dive in. Hopefully they get through their regional and we can talk more about Ole Miss baseball. But on the softball side of things, man, Ole Miss, they're right there, and I think they're primed to pull off some more upsets. And at this point, honestly, in their mind, at no point in their mind, I felt like they felt like the upsetter, right? They felt like they belong, and that's what it takes to be able to win at a high level. You have to know you belong, and if you know you belong, then you know that you got a shot in every single situation that you're in. So anyway, guys, that is the big time action for Ole Miss there. And let me not forget who do I believe will be the most impactful player moving forward for Ole Miss in this Women's College World Series. I think it's the freshman. I really like Percy Yamas. Percy Yamas, guys, the contributions she is making right now. She may not be like statistically speaking, she may be like top 3, top 4 in every category, somewhere in there maybe, right? However, what she's doing though is that she's providing clutch opportunities for the team. She's keeping innings alive, and she's also just doing what Kendra Falby's kind of doing for Florida. She's being a bit of a spark plug, and she's always a tough out. So I really like Percy Yamas. I think she's going to be an X factor for the Rebels, especially in these initial matchups as they go through. So listen, guys, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss my bracket prediction here, and kind of understand like what my thinking looks like on this run. Again, much like many of you, I could be way off on this, or I could be spot on. But either way, I'm going to give you my prediction. How far will each of these teams go throughout the Women's College World Series, and we'll go from there. Be right back, guys. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Listen, man, I'm excited about this Women's College World Series, obviously, but first of all, just shout out to the NCAA for the way they set up the tournament. I love this Elite Eight setting right here. The Women's College World Series this year, as the last couple of years to me are going to be electric. They're going to be off the charts. I think the fans are going to show up and show out, and we're going to possibly have some record-breaking numbers again, much like we did last year. But here's the thing, man. The teams this year, I feel like the last few years it's felt like the Oklahoma Invitational, because it has been that, right? And it could turn out to be some semblance of that again this year, depending on how Oklahoma is able to dominate or not, depending on the team that they're playing here. However, this year more than others, it seems like it's anybody's game. I think there's at least 6 teams in this tournament that could take it all, and we're going to see how it shakes out. But here are my predictions, okay? I'm going to start at the top of your bracket. And it's so interesting, man. The top of the bracket, you've got 5 SEC teams of the 8 here, and 4 of them, which probably you would say the 4 best SEC teams of the 5, with Ole Miss being number 5 of that group. They may not think that as well, but I salute that. I support that. But the 4 are all on the same side of the bracket to begin with. So that's going to be interesting to kind of see that unfold a little bit. But the first matchup you got here is Florida, and you've got Texas. Now listen, I believe in Tegan Kavan. I really like her. I like the way she's got things set up. Obviously, I told you before, Reese Atwood's going to be huge. Mia Scott, a lot of others who on that team right there are going to be ready to show out for Texas. I think Florida, though, they get this done. I think this is a matchup problem for Texas. I believe that Florida is fast. They play quick. They're a great fast-paced team. They're going to work hard on the base pads, and I think they've got the better defense ultimately. And because of that, because of the better defense specifically, I think Florida gets it done in this first round matchup with Florida and Texas. The second one there, we've got Tennessee and Oklahoma. We got Colin Pickens versus Sam Landry, right? That should be the matchup we see. I believe Colin Pickens is the better pitcher. I just believe, though, that throughout the course of a 7-inning setting, OU's offense is going to be a little bit better than Tennessee's. I don't see this being a blowout situation at all. I think this could be a 1, maybe 2-run ball game, and it comes down to the 7th inning. Ultimately, though, Oklahoma gets it done. Then you've got Florida versus Oklahoma right there, okay? I'm excited for this one. I loved this matchup last year, and if any of you remember, Florida knocked off Oklahoma last year, sent them to the losers bracket, so they had to kind of dig themselves out of it. I think Florida could possibly get this done again. Do I think they will for sure? No, that's why I'm going with Oklahoma. I think that Oklahoma is going to be a little bit better, a little bit more prepared for Florida this year because Florida's returning a lot of players, and I think that Patty Gasso and that staff, they've seen everything that Florida virtually has to offer, and I think they'll be dialed and they'll be ready. They saw each other earlier this year as well, so these two teams have played each other a lot over the last two seasons, and obviously even before Oklahoma joined the SEC last year. So this should be intriguing to watch. I'm excited. I hope this is a matchup that we get. I hope we get an Oklahoma Florida matchup right there. So I'm gonna give the nod to Oklahoma right there to get to the third round. The losers bracket right there, I've got Texas and Tennessee. Okay, Texas and Tennessee. Who's getting knocked out of the tournament first? Unfortunately, I got to go with Tennessee. I think their draw is too tough. I think the what Texas has right now is a bit much more than what Tennessee has right now. Last year's Tennessee team, I thought they had everything they needed, and they still didn't get it done. I don't know, man. I don't know that Tennessee can get it done. Unfortunately, I'm kind of rooting for them a little bit because I like Carlin Pickens. I like what she offers, obviously, but I think Texas gets it done here. So you've got Texas winning their first losers bracket game. So let's flip to the bottom of the bracket here because this is at this point Texas is going to be playing somebody from the bottom of the bracket once the losers bracket shakes out in the second round there. So let's talk about the bottom of the bracket here. We've got Texas Tech versus Ole Miss. All right, Ole Miss is putting everybody on upset alert. Right. Again, I keep saying they don't feel that way, I'm sure, but on the outside looking in, that is the appearance here. However, Nyjah Kennedy is going to get the start for Texas Tech. Therefore, Texas Tech is going to roll over Ole Miss. I don't know that it's going to be an easy matchup per se, because I think that the lineups are actually pretty comparable to each other with Ole Miss and Texas Tech. So who knows what could shake out on that front? You never know, right? But I think Texas Tech gets it done in this specific matchup. The next one there, you've got a battle of the former Pac-12 teams, now Big Ten programs, Oregon and UCLA. 16 versus a 9 seed, right? Which is so cool because in theory neither one of them was supposed to be here, right? This is supposed to be a 1 versus an 8 matchup, right? But again, they both prevailed and got things done, and here we are. So here's the thing, man, because you take out what could have been. I think 1 and 8 was Texas A&M and South Carolina, right? This should have been an SEC matchup, but instead it's a Big Ten former Pac-12 matchup, and that's salute to the pitching staff because ultimately that's what got it done in those Super Regionals matchups. Now, obviously, Oregon didn't have to face A&M; they got a chance to face Liberty, which I say got a chance. That's disrespectful. Liberty was a very much a formidable opponent, but in Game 2, Oregon established its dominance with the run rule victory and kind of made Liberty look a little bit less than for the first time in a long time. However, in this matchup here. I've mentioned Lindsey Grind multiple times for Oregon, but UCLA is going to be there. And unfortunately for Oregon, I believe that because they're matched up against UCLA, they don't get it done here. So they're going to drop to the losers bracket. UCLA is going to move on to face Texas Tech. And this should be a fun one. I'm interested to see who UCLA will start. I think Nyjah Kennedy is going to go again for Texas Tech. I think they're going to ride her until she can't. And because there's a day off right there, they play on Texas Tech plays. Well, actually, both these teams, Texas Tech and UCLA, both play on Thursday. They get a day off, and then they play again on Saturday, right? So let the losers bracket play on Friday. So because of that, I don't know, man. I think Texas Tech gets this done. This should be a fun matchup, though. I'm really excited to see that one if it pans out that way. So I got Texas Tech moving on to the third round. Of the bottom side of the bracket, just as I had OU moving on to the third round. And then you've got your first loser bracket game, Ole Miss and Oregon. I think this is where Ole Miss's run stops, unfortunately. I believe that I would hope they prove me wrong. I'll say that, but I think that them facing Nigel Kennedy in Texas Tech early, that's a tough matchup for them. The same way I feel about Lindsey Grine. She's just a dominant pitcher in the circle. I think with Oregon having dropped to UCLA as well, she's going to be dialed in the very next day. Now again, that's another piece to this though. It's the very next day, so when you drop in the losers bracket like this, your pitching staff members, plural, becomes pivotal because obviously people can go back to back. There's no doubt about that in our game. However, how much are they going to be able to give you? All right, how many of those innings are high stress innings? And you know what happens when high stress innings come into play too often, right? We make mistakes, we don't hit our spots one time or two, and great hitters take advantage of it. And this is a time where that can possibly happen. So because of that, Oregon could get knocked off here by Ole Miss, and Ole Miss could kind of continue their run here, but I think Oregon is going to get it done. And now things flip flop a little bit, right? So the losers of one of the losers from the top side will head to the bottom and vice versa. So now at the top, you've got a loser bracket matchup, okay, of Texas and UCLA. And then at the bottom, you've got Oregon and Florida. All right. These are two fun ones, man. These are two fun ones. That Texas UCLA matchup to me, if things had shaken out properly, this could have been a final, possibly, right? Some of you may be rolling your eyes, thinking, listen to me say that because OU's involved, but one of these teams could knock off OU. Really, I think they're good enough to do that. However, Texas, UCLA, I'm going Texas because I believe in what they've put together. I believe in their pedigree right now. If that's even a thing that you can lean on, so to speak. But Texas is right there, and they've got enough in the tank, I believe, down the stretch to be able to get over the UCLA hump. And then on the bottom side, man, Florida, there's going to be too much for Oregon. Point blank period. Now, I could be wrong, of course. But Florida's going to be too much for Oregon. Florida gets it done. So now we have our Final Four set up, right, where Oklahoma and Texas Tech, the way that this is set up, basically, is that they have not lost any games yet, right? So this is setting up to see who will be the final two teams to get into the championship series. Well, because Oklahoma and Texas Tech have not lost yet, they have to be beaten twice by their opponents. All right, so I got Oklahoma versus Texas, and I got Texas Tech versus Florida. Texas has to beat Oklahoma twice. Florida has to beat Texas Tech twice. To keep this brief, that doesn't happen. Texas and Florida, I think they could both possibly get a game, but I don't think they get two. And because of that, I have my championship final set up with Oklahoma Sooners and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. We're going to see Nigel Kennedy in a championship scenario against Big Bad Oklahoma. And let me tell you something. I think we're going to get an epic series. I think here's the thing. Nope. I'm going to hold it off. I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to hold it off. So I think we're going to get a good series, though. If this is what it is, I think we're going to get a good series regardless. But if this is what it is, if it's Texas Tech and Oklahoma, I'm not going to give my prediction on that yet because we want to make sure that this is what it is. And if it's not, next Tuesday I'll be able to share, what the championship series breakdown looks like from there, depending on what two teams make it. Again, this whole bracket I just gave you guys could be way off. But if this is it, if it's Oklahoma and Texas Tech, it's going to be fun. Two different styles of offenses, a lot to unpack on that front. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up my brackets here. Let's get into the thought you should know moment real fast. I'm going to cut this thing off and let you enjoy the rest of your day, your night, or whatever. Hopefully you're going to tune in, though. Hopefully you're going to tune in to this Women's College World Series, please, because it's going to be one for the record books in my humble assessment. Okay? So, anyway, with that being said, we're going to get into the thought you should know moment, and this is very, very simple, as it always hopefully is. But this is from head coach of Vandy baseball, Tim Corbin, and this is standards versus rules, and really this is for the players out there who are listening. All right, he says rules are for people who can't follow directions. Standards are for people who aspire to do special things. And when you think about that and you break it down in its simplest form, right? Coaches are not looking for people who they have to, make them follow guidelines, right? They have to make them follow the rules. They have to make them, right? Coaches are looking for players, man, who already have an elevated mindset of what they want out of this opportunity that they've been provided and that they've worked so hard for, and can they meet the standards and expectations of the program, right? That's a totally different scenario than making someone follow some rules. And so because of that, guys, I'm leaving it at that. I'm signing this show off, man. I'm absolutely excited for this. I hope you are too. I hope you're going to be dialed in with me because, listen, I may not be on the couch. I may be, up and exercising. I may be out and about, but I'm telling you, man, the games are going to be on, and I'm going to be focused on what's going on out in Oklahoma City too. So hopefully you will be, and hopefully we are just going to be in store for an amazing series, an amazing just atmosphere across the board, whether you're in person or watching on TV from around the country or around the world. So with that being said, guys, please let absolutely everything you do be done in love, truly, because that is truly what makes this world go round. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, I really appreciate your support of the show. And if you ever have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns that I can provide on your behalf, please let me know. You know where to find me. I'm just grateful to be here and grateful to serve in some way. So with that being said, guys, we'll catch you next time.